The following is a production of Woods Hole Oceanographic Institution.
The oceans hold immense promise, I think, for drug discovery.
With regards to combating antibiotic resistance or finding cures for diseases like cystic fibrosis.
Seawater is full of life. There's more microbes in the oceans than there are stars in our universe.
The CDC just came out with a really interesting and kind of alarming report in 2013 that said multi-drug resistant bacteria are a problem. Bacteria are gaining resistance against antibiotics. We're losing our arsenal of antibiotics. In the US alone, there's around 2 million infections a year of multi-drug resistant bacteria and around 23,000 deaths a year. That is scary. Most of our drug discovery in the case of antibiotics thus far has only come from terrestrial systems, which is a thin veneer of the crust. So we haven't explored 70% of the Earth's surface.
We have cells in the ocean that live in a very close proximity to each other and compete with one another. Microbes are experiencing a combat zone.
Bacteria don't have legs, they can't get up and move, they don't have teeth, they don't have, sharp spines. They've got to do something, and they use chemistry as their weapon against competitors.
One of the major discoveries in biomedicine really was that microbes make molecules that will kill other microbes. Penicillin, is a perfect example.
Antibiotics are just one class of molecules that microbes have evolved to defend themselves and mediate their interactions with one another. They've also evolved pumps that transport these molecules in and out of their cells.
What happens is the antibiotic will come into the cell, but then get pumped out before it can get in there and kill the bacteria.
You can give them as much antibiotic as you want, and they just aren't affected by it. So it's sort of like a flaming arrow being shot at the cabin, and the cabin shoots the flaming arrow back.
We're looking for chemicals that destroy the pump function. And by destroying the function of the pump, we can essentially silence the bacteria's defense system.
So then antibiotics can do their job. Cystic fibrosis affects tens of thousands of individuals here in the United States. People without treatment typically don't live past their 20s. The main hallmark of it is just gummy mucus that collects in the airways and leaves mainly the lungs prone to infection. It makes it very difficult to breathe, and it's just a devastating disease. Cystic fibrosis is really caused by an unhealthy pump. In cystic fibrosis, the pump itself cannot pump a salt out of the cell and into the mucosal lining. We think that there's molecules produced that can either shut down or stimulate these pumps.
And so we've just got to find those marine microbes that naturally produce these compounds.
We are working with a laboratory in Boston, the Flatley Discovery Lab, dedicated to finding a cure for cystic fibrosis. I can do things that these researchers can't. I mean, we can cultivate very difficult to grow microbes and make extracts that are of the highest quality. Each microbial extract can contain 1,000 or more unique compounds. So there's potential for a lot of different chemicals to be screened. It's these very molecules that we think could be effective in treating the affected pump in cystic fibrosis.
We have a microbial library. Many scientists have provided microbes
gathered from all over the world's oceans. We get all the molecules that they've excreted out into the seawater and pull those out, dry them down, and ship them to their laboratory to be resuspended and dosed to human cell lines that have the actual broken pump. And then the final test really is taking actual tissues from a patient and testing them. If they show efficacy in that final test with the lung tissue, then they can go straight into patients, and this whole process can be as short as a year or 2 years.
We are finding microbes that produce really interesting chemistry and could be used to develop new therapeutics in the future. From Bermuda, off the backs of Trichodesmium, which is a small phytoplankton, from mud samples up in Vancouver, and from right off the beach here at Shore Lab, from, of all places, a comb jelly.
This really feeds and helps both sides. It helps biomedicine move forward, and it helps oceanography move forward. When they get hits or they see these activities, then I can say, why is this molecule important in the ocean?
As a marine scientist, I'm interested in understanding the ecology of organisms. There's a whole world of new chemical structures waiting to be discovered. We've only cultured 1 to 2% of all marine bacteria. So can you imagine the chemical diversity waiting there to be discovered, described, and harnessed?
To learn more about Woods Hole Oceanographic Institution, visit us on the web at www.whoi.edu.